Okay, before we do this, I got a few things I gotta talk about. So first off, apologize if you hear the noise outside. My brother, once again. Second, 100 freaking subscribers. I would like to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. I never thought I would get here. Not only did we beat it, not only did we complete the goal, we completed the goal by nearly a month. So in a few days, there will be a 100 subscriber appreciation video. We'll just be giving people shout outs and stuff because I normally don't do that. I don't like promoting on this channel. I've done it a few times, but like I just don't like promoting other people because I don't know. Discord I don't really care. You could just promote your Spotify account on Discord if you want to. I don't care. Promote anything you want. But on my YouTube, nah, I don't like to do it as much. I like to be professional even though I'm Mr. 100 subs here. So yeah, today we are reading chapters 3 through 6 on what is the Stanley Cup. I realized that I'm an idiot and that chapter 1 was actually the prologue of the thing. So we only read the prologue in chapters 1 through 2. So we're going to read chapters 3 through 6 today. And those chapters are, let me find the chapter book real quick. So those are big changes from 1906 to 1916, the NHL takes over from 1917 to 1928, and tough times from 1929 to 1941. So it's going to be pretty interesting here. I hope you guys are ready for this one. Tomorrow I do have a very special video. See all those hockey cards? That's going to be tomorrow's video, so hopefully. So yeah, let's get into this. Big changes, 1906 to 1916. The next year brought one of the major changes to Canadian hockey leagues. Up until the 1905-1906 season, hockey players had been amateurs. They weren't paid, but the Stanley Cup kept making news. Competition grew stronger. Teams wanted to get the best talent, and they were willing to pay. The Cup turned professional. Some leagues disbanded, new ones formed, including the National Hockey Association, with teams from like the Montreal Wanderers and the Montreal Canadiens. That's when the Canadiens came in 1906. And we do have, actually, 1909, sorry. And they have like a little section here with Howie Morenz and Jean Velebo. So we're going to read that real quick. Founded in 1909, the Montreal Canadiens are the only National Hockey League NHL team older than the modern-day Pro Hockey League itself. The team had rosters of all-time greats. The Babe Ruth of hockey, Howie Morenz, 1923-1937. Let's see here, along with John Velebo, winner of the NHL Lifetime Achievement Award, 1950 to 1971. Very long career. As of 2018, the Canadiens have won more titles, 24, than any other NHL team, and are the only ones to win the Cup 5 times in a row. So yeah, there you go. There's Howie Morenz and John Velebo was on there. So now we're going to talk about Lester Patrick and his brother, Frank. He actually relates to Craig Patrick, who was a part of the 1980 USA Olympic team, and then relates to the movie with Edwin Jenner from The Walking Dead. I don't know how that references to The Walking Dead. I'm addicted to The Walking Dead and Z Nation and a bunch of other zombie shows like that. But anyways, Lester Patrick relates to Lester Patrick and Frank Patrick. We'll talk about Lester Patrick later on in the series. He might be in this book, actually, and we'll probably talk about him at some point on the channel as well once I get back to my mom's house, which is in 2 days. So, the Wanderers' captain and main defender, Lester Patrick led his team in 2 titles. At one point, Lester made more money than the Prime Minister of Canada. Then Lester and his brother, Frank, another talented player, moved west to British Columbia. They wanted to run a lumber business, and they thought the hockey days were over. They were wrong. In 1911, after selling the company, the brothers started a league, the New Pacific Coast Hockey Association, the PCHA. Remember that team? Remember that league? It's not a team. Would soon have hockey clubs in the Northwest United States as well in Canada. The Patricks played and coached, using new rules on rinks in artificial ice and blue lines. Lester Patrick had another idea, too, to have a series of games such as the World Series to decide the championship. The very next season, the Patrick Leagues in the West signed an agreement with the NHA. In the East, the Stanley Cup would be between these 2 leagues and no others. Eventually, another Western League was formed. And the West Coast playoff format was established. But there'd still be only one championship series at the end of every season, featuring the top team from each coast. For all intents and purposes, the challenge era was over. So here you go. This is Lester and Frank Patrick. We'll talk about the Patricks just like a lot of the other brothers, like the what was another one? The Stanley brothers, I'm not too sure. I can't really. The Esposito brothers. Let's see here. I'm just looking at my cards here because they'll spark some memories. And I think that's all I can think of right now. So yeah, we'll talk about them at some point. In 1914, the World Series of Hockey began. About the same time, a devastating worldwide event was taking place, World War I. Have you ever heard of that? World War I broke out that summer. Canada joined the conflict as soon as England declared war against Germany. The United States remained out of the war until 1917. With so many Canadian hockey players joining the military, the league struggled because, of course, then they were serving in the Canadian Army and that stuff. We'll get into that when World War II comes around and all that good stuff. Still, teams play on. They had names like the Vancouver Millionaires. Imagine naming a team called the Millionaires. The Quebec Bulldogs, which you might remember. You might know Quebec's a big part in this channel. The Spokane Canaries, which is one of the weirdest names ever. And from Portland, Oregon, the Rosebuds. In 1916, the Rosebuds made it to the Cup. The first American team to do so. However, there was actually one U.S. player on the team. It's like an American team goes to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they're all Canadians. That just shows how much Canadians are addicted to hockey. Nicknamed the Uncle Sams, they were up against the mighty Canadians. So here we have U.S. or that's probably Canada soldiers right there, and then we have, I think that's like the Pacific Coast Hockey Association playing right there. And now we have the Seattle Metropolitans, which if you watch X-Tech, it kind of relates to the Seattle Storm Bears, and that's like my favorite franchise, probably my favorite franchise mode of all time. And ever since I watched that series, I always wanted to live up to that. Now, once we finish the Toronto Maple Leafs franchise mode, we're going to start a custom team franchise mode, and it's probably going to be the Quebec Nordiques. It just has to be because the channel revolves around that team. So, in the early 1900s, most every hockey player was Canadian. In the 1917-18 season, for instance, oh my God, there were 40 players from Canada and only 3 from the United States. But as more American teams formed, the number of U.S.-born players increased. Eventually, players from around the world signed up for the NHL too. In the 2015-16 season, the number of Canadians dropped from below 50% of players for the first time in history. 24% were from the United States, followed by similar groups from Sweden, Finland, Russia, and the Czech Republic. So, the Seattle Metropolitans were the first American team to win the Stanley Cup. So, just thought I'd put that in there. Alright, so, all the games were played in Montreal, which is the Rosebuds of the Canadians, to save time and money. After the first 2, the series was tied 1-1. In Game 3, the play was hard and rough. Canadian star Edouard Newsy Lalonde was thrown out for fighting. After the call, both teams' benches emptied for the first brawl in the Stanley Cup history began. People in the stands joined the scrimmage too. I know this has happened a lot in like the NHL's history. It happened a lot with the Flyers, like the Blood Street Bullies. You know, they would get into a lot of fights, and the fans would get involved with it a ton. So, just imagine you're kicking the crap out of Milan Lucic. This is Brian Murray. Brian Murray probably would not fight. Kicking the crap out of Milan Lucic, and then I come in from the stands and start kicking the crap out of Brian Murray. Don't hurt Milan Lucic, even though I'm not a Flames fan at all. But I think he's actually... What team is he? Yeah, he's on the Flames right now, I think. I'm not a Flames fan, but I'm kicking the crap out of you. That would be pretty weird. So, finally, the chief of police arrived. He threatened to throw both teams in jail. Imagine both teams in jail. They're both in the same prison. It's like you got Columbus over here. I mean, it's like you got Montreal over here, and the Rosebuds over here. The Rosebuds are in one cell. The Canadians are in the other cell. And they're all just punching the wall. And once the wall breaks over, because they're all super strong and they're punching the wall, they have super strength, they all start kicking the crap out of each other. And then we'll never know what's going on for there. So fans and players settled down. Montreal ended up taking the game, but it came down to the 5th and last game. Now, this is a big picture here, so I'm going to try to fit it in as much as I can. That's the first part of the bench Preclear Brawl. That's the second part right there. With about 7 minutes left, the score was tied 1-1. Montreal goalie Georges Vezina made a save. Lalonde got the rebound. In a surprise move, the high scorer left the puck behind the net. A Montreal defender, Gordy Rogers, picked it up and raced down the ice. He faked out Rosebud goalie, slipping the puck into the net. The Canadiens have won their first of 24 Stanley Cups. The next year, a different American team made it to the championship, the Seattle Washington Metropolitans, which you just talked about. And then a new Seattle team, which has which was one of the most popular videos on the entire channel. Their name getting revealed was announced because I was like the first person to make that, and that video was very entertaining because there was a lot of good laughs, and that video was made in January. There was a lot of funny bloopers in that, so. Took the series in 4 games to become the first official U.S. winners. Less than 2 weeks later, on April 6, 1917, the United States entered the war, fighting alongside Canada, England, and France. Game attendance shrank even more. The NHA fell apart. There was talk of stopping play. Instead, the NHA's owners founded the NHL, and the Stanley Cup kept going. So, here's Gordy Rogers. I have no idea who the heck this dude is. I only found him out because of this book. If I didn't read this book, I would never know who he was. So, Chapter 4, the NHL takes over, from 1917 to 1928. World War I finally ended on November 11th, 1918. However, an even deadlier worldwide disaster struck, the Spanish flu. The epidemic did not end until the summer of 1919. An estimated 20 to 50 million people died. The March 1919 final of the Stanley Cup still took place. The Metropolitans and Canadiens had a championship rematch in Seattle. Going to Game 4, Seattle had 2 games to 1. After regulation and 2 overtime periods, the score was tied. Unsure what to do, the officials blew the final whistle. The first Stanley Cup game ended a draw. It's probably one of the only ones. Game 5 went into overtime too, but the Canadiens squeaked out a win. However, by the end, Joe Hall and other Montreal's players were slowing down. Fans just thought they were tired. Nobody thought the players were sick. The morning of this deciding game, 3 Canadians ran fevers. Hall's temperature rose to 105 degrees. Over 105 degrees. That was like when I was sick, like a week into like my school getting quarantined. That was actually one of the times where I made news of the futuristic news times, and I haven't made one since. I should probably make one before the month ends. I'll just do one once a month. So I'm not sure what year I'm gonna do that, but yeah, I was really sick. I was like at 104 fever, so I was pretty close to him. He and another player were sent to the hospital. They had the flu. The Canadians couldn't field the team. They forfeited. Seattle could have taken the cup and had been declared champions. They refused because they were good sports, because Seattle is Big Green. Here's a picture of people getting sick and stuff. Not going to get into that. So the series was canceled. No winner was crowned. Sadly, Hall died days later. 5 years after that, luckily I didn't die. 5 years after that, the Seattle team disbanded. Other Western teams folded too. Even though now hockey was much more popular than ever, the focus wasn't on the West. It was growing in the East. It was on the East and the growing NHL. The NHL's first American team, the Boston Bruins, came aboard in the 1924-25 season, followed by the New York Rangers, the Chicago Blackhawks. The name was changed to one word, Blackhawks, in 1986. It was black. It was 2 words until 1986. Wow, I didn't know that. And the team that would become the Detroit Red Wings. In the 1926-27 season, the NHL had 10 teams in the United States and Canada. In fact, it was the only league left. All Western Pro Leagues have disbanded. The NHL was large enough to have divisions and playoffs, and the Stanley Cup was its trophy. It was one of the first Stanley Cup series of the NHL era. The Rangers faced off the Montreal Maroons. The game started on April 5th, 1928. All were held in Montreal. That was because the Rangers' home arena was Madison Square Garden. At that time every year, the circus took over the Garden. So to this day, I think the circus is still in the Garden. So there's Joe Hall right there. Fortunately, he died days after Game 5, and that's the circus right there. Because why not? The Rangers coach was here we go. We're gonna get into this. The Rangers coach was Lester Patrick. He was already a legend in Montreal after playing for the Wanderers. How would he fare in this series? Patrick's team lost in the first game 2-0. The second game was tense, scoreless match. To make matters worse, Rangers goalie Lawrence Chabot was hit in the eye. Of course, it doesn't tell. I thought it was Nell Stewart who knocked him out, but apparently it wasn't. The New York team, without a backup, had no goalie, but the Maroons refused to allow a professional goalie watching the game. I still don't get that in the stands to step in. However, they agreed to another substitute, Lester Patrick. Patrick was almost 40 years old. He had been retired for 6 years. He never even played goalie in a real game. But he stuffed the socks into Shabbat's large skates so they fit and went out onto the ice. Patrick dove and flopped. He dropped to his knees. He stopped the puck after puck. Meanwhile, the Rangers scored. They were up 1-0. Patrick kept his shut up. There were only 5 minutes left in the game. Maroons' Nell Stewart trapped the rebound in the front. What? The Maroons' Nell Stewart trapped the... I am such an idiot. Then who was the coach? I watched an NHL documentary and it said that Nell Stewart was the coach. They're retards. Who is the real? What is real? Oh my god. He faked a shot. Patrick tried to make a save, but he moved the wrong way. The puck went in the other side. So... here's Lester Patrick gearing up right there. And then here's him playing in the game. The game went into overtime. Somehow, Patrick kept the Maroons to that one goal. While Frank Boucher netted another for the Rangers, the series was tied. For the next 3 games, the Rangers were allowed to use a professional goalie. Inspired by his fearless coach, the team worked out harder than ever. In the 5th game, Frank Boucher, who we'll talk about at some point, scored both goals in a 2-1 victory, and the Rangers took the title. To celebrate, the cup was displayed in a window on a Cartier, a famous and famously expensive jewelry store near New York City. It seemed a fitting place. During the roaring 20s, people began spending money freely, but the good times were drawing to a close. Great Depression, baby. Chapter 5, Tough Times. Late 1929 brought the Great Depression and economic crisis. Millions of people lost their jobs and their homes. Hockey fans, along with everyone else, had less money to spend. They stopped going to games. As the depression went on, teams folded. Even big names like the Ottawa Senators didn't last. The remaining teams needed big wins to keep their fans coming. Yeah, they went to St. Louis and became the St. Louis Eagles for a year, but they just basically were done then. And they were struggling even before this happened, so they just had not really been lucky. So here is men building shacks. Men building shacks during the Great Depression. So here we go. They needed the Stanley Cup. In 1934, the Red Wings made it to the finals, only to lose to Chicago. In 1936, they were back in the playoffs. The problem, they faced the defending champs, the Montreal Maroons. It was the first game of what was now best-of-5 series. The face-off was at 8:30 p.m. It could have ended by 10, but after 3 periods, the score was 0-0. The game went into overtime. 1 overtime period passed, then 2, then 3. Hours went by. It was 2 a.m. now, and the teams were in their 6th overtime. Detroit goalie Normie Smith had stopped 90 shots. Lauren Shabbat, now with the Maroons, has stopped fewer, 66. Would the Maroons keep pounding on the net, eventually scoring to win? At 2:25 a.m., the youngest player on the ice of the night, rookie Red Wing Mud Brunetto, probably butchered that, got hold of the puck in front of the goal. He swung his stick hard. The puck flew over Shabbat's foot into the net. It was the funniest thing, Brunette said later. The puck was just stuck there in the twine. It never fell down. The Red Wings took the game, the longest game in Stanley Cup playoffs history, and swept the series. They wanted to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in the finals and won a game in 1937. But there was no three-peat. In 1938, the Red Wings didn't even make the playoffs, so that sucks. Here's Normie Smith, like here. It looks like he's dead. And then there's the puck that's like halfway through the netting. Next up here. The very next year, there was brewing once again in Europe. September 1939, England and France declared war on Germany. Canada quickly followed their lead, while the United States waited to decide if they would join conflict overseas. With an increase in factory production and overjobs, World War II ended the long depression. There was no cause for the celebration, too. Many young men were fighting and dying. So here's a bunch of girls. I don't know what that relates to. Remember that one thing that's in one of my local restaurants that says we can do it with a girl. I don't really. People who live nearby and people who've seen it probably know what I'm talking about, but like I have no idea how to describe it. So the NHL carried on as best as it could. That March in 1940, the Maple Leafs and the Rangers reached the finals. One team hailed from Toronto, a city and in a country at war. The other team was based in the United States, a country, for the moment, not taking part in the fighting. The players felt the difference. In Toronto, I forgot to show you this final picture here. It's Toronto and Montreal, I'm pretty sure, that are playing. Fierce rivalry. We'll get into that at some point. In Toronto, Canadian soldiers in uniform were everywhere. At the Leafs Arena in Toronto, fans screamed their hearts out every time their team scored. When the Rangers scored, the place felt silent. Still, the Rangers pulled out a cup win in 6 games and turned into a double celebration. The company then owned Madison Square Garden, and the Rangers had just finished paying for the arena. So company officers tossed official papers about the bank loan into the cup. They set their papers on fire. It was a way of proclaiming their purchase of Madison Square Garden, but the trophy burned a bit too. It was a curse, some said, of the Stanley Cup curse. Now, as you know, the Rangers won the cup in 1940, and they didn't win until 1994, 54 years later. So they called it the curse, and Vancouver rioted. So yeah, that's it for this one. That's chapters 3 through 6. Actually, is it? I'm not sure. No, it is not. So it looks like we're going to have to read another chapter. I'm an idiot. What did I get wrong then? Oh. Wait, what? I'm so confused. Anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, please do drop a like and hit the subscribe button. We were at 100. Now the new goal until we get to June. Once we get to June, it's gonna be 200 by the end of the year. Once we hit 2021, I want to get to 200. The goal by then is to get 115 subscribers by June 1st. So I might extend it to June 30th. I'm not sure. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.